Alright, so this is going to be part 3 to what if Deku was Iron Gel. So before we get into the actual story, if you guys were curious on how Yorushi did in the Quirk assessment, I'll tell you a few of his stats. Or, I guess the placements and where he got. In the 20-meter dash, he would have got first place, since he is faster than Todoroki, and I would believe that he's faster than Ida, at least at this point, because Ida needs some room to actually go his full, speed. He needs time to accelerate. So he would have got first place in that. In terms of the ball throw, he would have gotten maybe second place, or not second, he probably would have gotten either second or third, depending on if he was able to beat Deku's score with his wind, which I think he'd be able to beat Bakugo, just because Yorushi does have a large, let's say, distance with his wind power, as well as being able to make literal tornadoes and being able to lift himself just using wind. So it has to be pretty strong for him to be able to do that. So in terms of strength, he would probably get third place. So I think he'd be stronger than most people in class 1A physically, except for Shoji, because of his duplo arms and him having a kind of more muscular, figure to him, just in general. So that's kind of where he would place. Alright, so our story would begin a little bit, the days after the Quirk assessment and the Heroes vs. Villain test. And if you guys are wondering who would be, the class representatives, it would obviously be Deku and Nomu, since they are the two most responsible kind of people in class 1A at this point. Especially with the way that Deku's personality is in this one. I guess a contender would be Ida, but Ida wouldn't get as many votes due to the fact that he lost against Deku and Uraraka, but that's beside the point. So, like I said, our story would begin a little bit after that. So, Aizawa would tell the class that they're going to the USJ to work on rescue hero kind of training and those kind of things of that nature, right? So he says that they're gonna go in a few days so they could get ready. For Deku's kind of suit, I'm not sure how it would be, since Deku doesn't really need, there's not really a way to boost his power using a suit, because everything he does he creates. So his suit would probably be more I don't know, it'd be more function than looks, kind of like Aizawa's, I guess. And yeah, so after this, we would get to the day of it would be the day where they would have to go to, or not really the day, it would be the day where the press comes in. So we would go in the morning. This is where Deku would walk into school, and this is where the press would ask him questions about All Might come to UA and being a teacher there. So Deku isn't one to gossip, so he doesn't tell him much. He says that yes, that All Might is a teacher here because he can't lie, and that he's doing a fantastic job teaching the younger students what it means to be a hero. So Deku walks off after that and doesn't really tell him more. The news anchors basically think that's really boring information, so they try other students. To no avail, no one really tells them anything really interesting. And they're trying to get into the school to ask more questions. And this is where they put up that wall so that the press can't come in. So we could skip ahead to the point where they're having lunch, and this is where the media actually comes in to tell them, or I guess before that, it would be Monoma, and I think Monoma would come in to kind of talk, trash against Class 1A, but this time Yoroshi's there as well, and so is, the rest of Deku's kind of friend group. So if I remember right, this is before any of the real kind of moments that Monoma actually comes in, but let's just say that since there are a lot of heavy or top kind of students in Class 1A, he actually decides to, talk trash earlier than usual. So he tells him, "Oh, it's Class 1A. If you guys don't, try your best, Class 1B is surely, going to defeat you, both in our powers, our quirks, and in general hero work." So Deku doesn't really understand why he's doing this, and Yorashi is getting pretty excited. And he goes up to Monoma and says, "Oh, so you wanna have a competition about this, right?" And Monoma's kind of getting a little intimidated because Yorashi's very tall and very imposing, but at the same time, he's being kind of overly friendly, and Monoma doesn't really know how to kind of express this. And this is where Kendo, I believe, comes in and basically hits him on the head and tells Monoma to apologize as they walk away. As this is happening, this is when the alarms trigger and everyone starts running towards the hallway, basically, after the alarm is triggered. So they would see that, or Ito would say that it's a press, and this is where Deku would actually know or hear this from Ito, and he would use his iron to basically, shoot out from the ground to kind of get people's attention, not to like hurt them or anything, but just to kind of get people's attention. After this, he would calmly say that for people not to get worried, that it's only the media and that they should get a hold of themselves. So after this, Yorashi would have congratulated Deku for being so calm in that situation. And after this, we could time skip a little bit until they get to the day of the USJ trip. So everyone goes on the bus, and everyone does it in a kind of neat order, I guess, just how Deku would have wanted it. So after that, they get on the bus, and this is where Tsuyu, or Froppy, basically looks at Deku's hand and notices that there's a number on it. She asks Midoriya, "Why is there such a high number on your hand?" And he says, "Oh, this is just the number that's connected to my quirk." And at this point, let's say that it's around 14,300. So in between the kind of, I guess, week or two that he's at UA, it's increased by another 300. So she's like, "What do you mean?" And Deku basically says that his quirk is called Iron Conviction, and it lets him create iron as well as have this number on his hand that goes up every time he stands by one of his convictions, which makes his kind of power stronger. So when I was thinking back, this is kind of like, this has to do with the number system in Plunderer. So when I was thinking back on Plunderer and kind of remembering some details I thought of before, I'm pretty sure the number also affects your physical strength and speed, because there's a scene, I'm not going to spoil it too much in case you haven't watched Plunderer. There's a scene in the anime where they're surprised on how fast a character is, despite his number being being lower than the person he's going against. So this should imply that his strength or speed should be connected with his number, at least to a certain point, because we've seen characters that are generally higher than most people not being that affected by the number, or even stated to be affected by the number, once getting a higher number. So you guys can tell me if you want this change in or not, but I'm going to include it for this video. So he would be a lot faster than a normal person, being in the superhuman levels, as well as strength and other attributes like that. So as they would get along on the kind of trip there, Froppy would also discuss the kind of stronger people in Class 1A, that being Bakugo, Yorashi, and Todoroki. So they won't really count Deku just yet. He's kind of like the fourth member, but he is stronger than Bakugo. Really, they just haven't seen too much of Deku's power, at least for right now. So they would get to the USJ, and this is where 13 would come and do that speech on quirk control and things like that. Yoshi would get very excited to meet another pro hero and kind of fanboy off of this, I guess, a little bit. After this is where a giant gateway would open up and a bunch of different villains would come out, including Shigaraki and the Nomu. So everyone's confused and they thought, this isn't, villain training, why are they here? And this is where Aizawa would basically say, this isn't part of the training, everyone get back. 13, take care of the kids. So this is where Aizawa would jump down to basically go and fight the villains. Deku wouldn't hesitate and go down as well because of one of his convictions, that being a hero and helping others. So as Aizawa was basically, punching and wrapping a bunch of different villains up, this is where Deku would start throwing giant, poles of iron at different villains, basically knocking them out as he does so because they're just so giant, I guess. As this is happening, Deku, whenever, villains would get close to him, he would have enough strength to fight back physically and be able to kind of, attack them with hand-to-hand combat. So I think Deku would kind of be in a kind of boxing stance, kind of light on his feet, and kind of doing a little bit of rapid punches when any villain would get near. So after a bit, Aizawa, he would have told Deku, why are you here? You're supposed to go with 13. You need to, get out of here. And Deku says, I cannot do that. That goes against my convictions, and I need to stay true to them to get stronger. So Aizawa's like, fine, but just don't get hurt. Eventually, this is where Aizawa would see Shigaraki and try to go for him, but Shigaraki would try to also get his kind of elbow, while Aizawa would turn off his quirk for a bit, trying to land a few punches, and this is where the Nomu would come to kind of block it and start basically pummeling Aizawa into the ground. So this is where Deku would see that, and he would try to go and get for Aizawa, and this is where Shigaraki would try to go for Deku, trying to basically use the decay to kill him. Before the decay can actually go for him, Deku puts iron around his arm, and Shigaraki tries to disintegrate that, and it's not really working, even though Shigaraki has disintegrated or decayed metal before, earlier in this part where he destroyed the door or the gate for UA. He's wondering what's happening? How come it's not decaying? And Deku's just looking at him. He's like, of course my iron wouldn't break. You have no conviction. Because remember, this is Shigaraki before, getting his purpose from Midoriya in I think season 3. Or after, it was in the middle of season 2, I think, or the beginning of season 3, I'm not sure. But yeah. So this is the Shigaraki that's basically like a kid that's just getting annoyed that All Might exists. So he tells him this, and Shigaraki's like, what? I don't understand. And then this is where Deku says, that's my quirk, iron conviction, as he just breaks away from Shigaraki's grip and actually just hits him in the face using his iron hand. This knocks back Shigaraki, and the Nomu notices this and goes for Deku. Deku would try to use his iron to basically stick through the ground, piercing the Nomu, I would think, because the Nomu is only real shock absorption, and not so anything that's piercing would pretty much work for the most part, if I remember right. This is also where the rest, not the rest, but Yorashi and Todoroki would come by, because those two were teleported together and would have basically taken out most people very fast, especially since both of them have really powerful quirks. So as a Nomu is kind of pinned, right, physically and literally, or literally and figuratively, I guess, Deku would ask Todoroki to go and freeze the Nomu in place. And Todoroki doesn't like to be ordered around, but he does so since this is a very important thing. And then he tells Yorashi to kind of throw. He tells him to use his wind to throw Deku at it as fast or as hard as he can. So that's what Yorashi does. And as Deku's kind of spinning throughout the air, he actually summons a kind of lance. A lance that he has in his hand, very large. Basically, after this, he pierces through the Nomu, who's already frozen at this point, basically shattering it to pieces. This is when Shigaraki comes back from getting basically knocked out for a bit and tells Kurogiri to get him out of here with a broken nose, and he's like bleeding from his nose as well. So they both leave, and this is where the rest of the pro heroes would come in, see what's happened, and get everyone medical attention. So Aizawa is pretty messed up, but he is gonna have a faster recovery time than normal because of this. So I guess the question that people want to know is, who is One for All going to be given to? And I'm not really sure. Most people want Mirio, but you guys can tell me who you want to happen, or who you want it to go to. So yeah, I think I might give it to Nejire Hato, because I think that's the only person who I haven't given to, at least in the big three. So you guys can tell me what you guys want down below. So All Might would congratulate the students for basically defending themselves and being able to get really no too big of casualties, and the media would also come by and see that they defended themselves, and Deku would give a honest report on what happened. So the media doesn't really see this as too much of a negative, but it is seen as kind of a big oversight on UA's part. So UA still gets kind of blamed for this attack happening, at least a little bit. So yeah, this is gonna be the last or end of the video. So remember, if you like the video, please give it a like, and if you like my videos in general, you can subscribe for more. Remember, if you got to the end of the video, comment down CS so I know that you support the channel. So with that being said, it's gonna be in the video. So yeah.